Welcome to Spiritual Changemakers, the podcast that guides you through tough times with practical tools and inspiring stories. I'm Andreea Thomas, your host and the Sacred Transitions Coach. Join us as we hear from spiritual changemakers who have connected with their higher power and overcame adversity. Whether you are navigating a difficult transition or seeking to deepen your spiritual practice, our podcast provides guidance to help you find magic in the change. Come on this journey of self-discovery, empowerment, and transformation with us and unlock your potential to become your best self. Hello, my beautiful souls. Welcome to a new episode on Spiritual Changemakers. Today we have an amazing guest. We are going to have Manuel. Get ready to applause to welcome in. And Manuel is a serial entrepreneur and an angel investor. So stay tuned because he's going to share with us from his many years of being an entrepreneur. He literally started his first business when he was 12 years old. So if you're looking for some gems from some really juicy experiences, how to face the no's and the rejection, then this is the episode for you. So welcome, Manuel. How are you?
No.
I want to know how is your vibe right now? Let's see. Let's check in before we dive in. I'm so excited and so grateful for you saying yes to be here on this guest episode. Thank you for honoring us with your presence. Before we dive in, Manuel, would love just you give us a little bit of a background about yourself. And I know you have shared with me, and we have met a few weeks ago at Manuel University. I really enjoyed our connection and our conversations. And you have shared so many gems with us. And I also have joined your workshop about Inception, which was mind blown, guys. So if you want to learn more about Inception, make sure you're going to go and check Manuel's profile and see what it's all about. And I'm sure he's going to share with us more about it. It's something very different that really stands out. And I know that helped you progress within your big journey. So please share with us a little bit more about yourself.
Hey guys, I'm Manuel. I'm originally from Italy. I'm still living there, even though having a German name and a German accent. As Andrea said, being an entrepreneur kind of my whole life since ever. And yeah, that's what I do. We nowadays build and scale thought leader businesses. So that's our core, what we do with our signature Inception webinar strategy. That means we help thought leaders to create such a big epiphany moment in their audience's mind that they crave their products or services from within, so they don't have to sell or manipulate or whatever.
And it's a very cool concept. I know within your workshop, I was definitely mind blown. So I know that bringing that effect within your clients, it can definitely change the game for them. And Manuel, I would love to hear how do you experience spirituality within your own life? Because I know that's a big thing for you as well.
Yeah, definitely. Nevertheless, like I would say, I experience the spirituality in a more practical way. So for me, it's not doing rain dances and whatever. For me, it's more like, how can you design a lifestyle which helps you to grow and evolve in the best possible? You can compare it a bit like with a flower, right? So if you're a flower, or if a flower is like dying, that it's not growing anymore, what most people do is they try to take some colors and they're painting it, and they just try to whatever manipulate back the life into the flower. And that's what our society tells us to do, right? We get some Botox, we get some lifting, and we get whatever fancy, expensive things out there. Whereas if you really want to help the flower, it's better to go back to the roots, literally. Like, what does the flower need, right? It's the sun, it's air, it's water, it's a proper soil, and to understand those factors and then design them so that the flower can grow and blossom and unfold in its best way. That's for me spirituality. And that's actually also what life should be about. And really important also to understand what kind of flower are you? Because it's not the same for every flower, right? Some flowers need warmer weather and more water, and others grow in the mountains. Some other flowers growing in the sea and so on. So you need to figure out that for
But
yourself.
it's definitely a very unique and different way of describing than everything I have heard so far. But if I would recap to bring it all together, what you just shared, it's like figuring out what are your own individual needs and your unique needs, and taking care of those first and foremost before anything else. And when you do that, then you're going to be able to blossom and to flourish. Beautiful. Thank you so much for the description.
You're welcome.
Do we touch on how do you handle rejection? And being an entrepreneur, and as we have already shared, you have started your journey when you were 12 years old, like with bicycles. Can you tell us a little bit about that journey? And how are you handling rejection, even like starting at that age?
Cool. Thank you for the question. So back in the days, more than 20 years ago, I can't believe it. My father is a very clever man, and he taught me a very important lesson, like back in the days when I was 12. Why? Because he came over to me and asked me, "Man, summer break is coming, right? And in Italy, we have 3 full months of summer break. So almost 100 days." And he said, "You can get a job and work for me," because he was an entrepreneur too. Or he said, "Or I can make you an offer that kind of you start your own thing on your own risk. Whatever you do, you need to think about everything." And I was like, and he made me, yeah, 2 offers. And at the beginning, I was like a bit of a skeptical, right? And I was like, I don't want to work summer break. I want to go to the lake with my friends and just like football playing and whatever. Then nevertheless, like I learned really important lesson, like to get a second opinion. Back in the days, that was my mom. I went to my mom and said, "Hey, mom, could you help me? Because dad said I can work for him for a certain salary, or I can start my own thing, own business." And I created then together with my mom, my first business plan. I still remember that, like we were sitting together at the kitchen table and I made like the calculations, right? Okay, there are 90 days in summer, 3 months, right? So it's a bike rental, which I could open up, right? And I have that amount of bikes, but obviously we might have rain days. So I'm no income or cash flow on those days. That's the average price. And we were really creating a calculation out of it. And at the end, we created like a worst case, normal case, and best case scenario. And I was like, okay, even in the worst case, I make, I don't know, 5 times more than just having a normal summer job. And that was then for me the decision. Okay, like I do it for myself, whatever comes up. Yeah.
And was your mom
That was the
an
beginning.
entrepreneur? Because I know you shared that your dad was an entrepreneur.
Yeah. Not really. She's renting out apartments,
Okay.
but she used to be a teacher.
You said you seek out her help. And what drove you to ask for her support and not your dad?
It's a good question. I never thought about that. Probably just to get a second opinion. And also, I think my dad might have had more the masculine approach, right? Let the boy get a job and do his thing. And I knew that my mother would always help me to come to a conclusion which is the best for me, not for career wise, because for her, all the happiness was always the most important factor, not the career path.
So like usually I hear like how what coaches helping you come up with your best solution instead of enforcing a response for you that you felt that you would have gotten from your father. When you started on that
Yes.
path at 12 years old, where did you face rejection during that time?
I would say more facing failure in that time, right? Because obviously you make mistakes. That's unavoidable. It's from whatever you do, which products we offer, which pricing, also getting like bad feedback from clients, customers, and so on. So like back in those days, it was not really that much about rejection. It was more about failure and how to handle everything, how to handle the complexity of a business. Nevertheless, then soon later, if you move on the journey of an entrepreneur, rejection is just like air. You get it every
So
time.
as being part of eating and breathing and drinking water, or when you are an entrepreneur.
Yeah.
Mhm.
Yeah.
So you said you faced more failure than rejection. With failure,
Yeah.
I know I have seen within myself, with my clients, where we want to take this action within business and we want it to be perfect from the beginning. Nothing can be perfect from the beginning. And how do you get over that hurdle, I would say, to leave that perfectionism on the side and embrace the failure and experimenting and rejection?
Two advices on that. Like the first one is really a mantra, which I still use today, almost every day. I win or I learn. For me, failure is not an option. And once I incorporated this mantra, it led me to even more helpful habits, so to say, to write down my win, the progress, also writing down my failures and celebrating both. And that for me nowadays, like I have at my apartment, I have like flip chart, right? A big one. And I write literally down every day. It's for me, it's really important in the morning and in the evening. Just takes me a minute. What was good today? What was like a win, a progress? And where did I fail? And for me, this very physical overview is crucial. Why? Because I always notice if I lose the balance, because if just one side would be filled with like failure, 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 not game. If just wins are there, it means I just don't play big enough. I just don't play risky enough. So for me, it's really crucial to have this balance of both sides. And I had to learn to appreciate both. Because as you said, I mean, just think through school, right? Where did
In
you
rema-
go to elementary school?
in
In which country? So you might have had the same system as we did in Italy. Usually you get a test, 10 questions. If you answer 9 of them correctly and one wrong, what does the teacher do? Show you the wrong one, right? You made a failure. You are a failure. School teaches us, it primes us that making
yeah.
mistakes is wrong. But what you learn as an entrepreneur is always to see failure as feedback, to
Mhm.
have a feedback loop. They just point out the failure. They
Mhm.
never teach us like how to see the failure as feedback and how to improve it for the next time. And that's the big problem, because if we are conditioned to this like for 12, 14 or 16 years, whatever, you get afraid of it because you think it's a bad thing. Whereas it's not a bad thing, because it shows that you were doing something, that you were risking something, and it's a gift. It's a gift for growth. It's a gift for improving, for learning. And for that, like nowadays in all companies I'm involved, in all projects I'm involved, like really having an achievement board, but even more important, have a failure board. Like where do we celebrate the failures? And also having a culture. Nevertheless, on failure, that I always say, the first time it's a failure, the second time it's a decision. Okay. So making failures one time, it's cool. In the best case, if nobody else made it before, and if it's not going to kill you. So failures sometimes are not good if it's like really causing collateral damage, but just like in the business context and so on, it's really good. Yeah.
Okay. And would you say, were you able to separate yourself from failures and not make them personal, not take them personal? And how did you do that?
By starting to create a relationship with it. You can compare it like with a toxic relationship. If you make failures and if you let affect then your state of being, and if it has a negative impact, not so good. But if you create a very positive proactive relationship with it. If you are aware of them, if you acknowledge them, if you appreciate them, and if you go to this root cause. One question I ask myself every day is, if I could live this day once again with the wisdom I have now, if I could start this morning once again with all the experience, the wisdom, the failures, and also the achievements I have now, what would I change? By that, you change the relationship to failures. Because if you have such a instant feedback loop, you say, okay, all right, that was a failure. That was like, if I take my day today, like there are a couple of things I could have done better. But if I like take a few minutes in the evening and just reflect through it and see, okay, this, and this was a failure. Okay, I didn't know it before. What can I do to make it better the next time, tomorrow, the next time it happens? Then it turns failure into feedback, and then feedback into progress.
Beautiful. So then it goes, I see the path. I see the path, the way you have described it. Thank you for sharing. I do see a lot of golden nuggets there, and you are definitely your experience from so many years of being an entrepreneur and working within. I know you've had several businesses and now working with several companies and entrepreneurs. He definitely comes through. And go back to the rejection piece. What would you say are some traits or strategies that can help someone to bounce back once they get the rejection?
I would say there's one core thing, and that's self-esteem.
Mm.
Self-esteem as its core is the antidote to rejections, breakups, failures, whatever it is. And for me, I asked myself that question like years ago, like, how can I handle better rejection? Because everybody I know struggles with it. It can be your private life if you have a breakup. It can be with friends if you decide to take different paths in life, but especially in business. If you're in business, rejection is on the daily agenda. And I did my research, and for me, self-esteem was the universal antidote to it. And self-esteem for me is like a collection of, if you are self-aware, once again, you always will come back to the flower too. But knowing who you are, becoming aware of your strength, also of your weaknesses. Well, usually weakness leads to failure. If you have that as core, so self-aware, then self-love, if you devote yourself to yourself properly, and then if you get self-confidence, if you have all those traits, you have this foundation of self-esteem. And if that is there, rejection does not really hurt anymore. I once heard the quote, and it really impressed me. It was like, what if someone's rejection is God's protection? And it can be, right? Once again, and it's just about the reflection part afterwards.
Yes, because even when we search for a job, let's say, I know people get so disheartened when they don't get the interview, or when they go to the interview and they'll pass the interview and they're like, oh my God, such a failure. I can't believe I got rejected again. But the way I like to look at those things is, okay, it's this or something better. And this also goes, I would say, the theme with a quote that you just have shared. Because if I wasn't accepted to the job, or if this client didn't say yes to my offer, or wherever it is, that means there is something better out there waiting for me, that we are a better match for something else, instead of getting hung up into the fact that, oh my God, I was not accepted, or this client didn't say yes to my offer.
I can just give an example on the other side, because we hired like a remote sales rep team. We had 5 positions. Nevertheless, we were lucky enough to almost get 100 applicants. So obviously I had to send out to a lot of people a note saying, hey, I'm sorry, like this is the reason. This was what we were looking for. Okay. I'm sorry. I can just take 5 for now. And I got back like a really angry email. I was like, wow. It was like, how can you reject me? And what do you think? The core message between the line was like, you are rejecting me. who do you think who you are? And I would have expected at least a detailed reasoning why it happened. So obviously an illusion, because if you have 100 applicants, if I would have to invest like half an hour for every single applicant, it's impossible. Nevertheless, it's like what I honestly wrote to him. I said, bro, your answer to me is already your feedback.
Yeah.
Because you're not able, if you apply to a job, okay, just by filling out a form, and if somebody says in a very friendly, kind way, hey, thank you, I appreciate your effort, but we just had 5 positions for almost 100 people. I'm so sorry. Nevertheless, I keep you in the records, and there will positions open up, and you really freak out, then it is your feedback. It is, because then once again, self-awareness. Are you aware of your trigger points? There is for sure something in his life, in his past, which whatever caused this situation. But that was like, okay, that's interesting. And that's also what you need to learn, even as entrepreneur. In that case, I give 5 people probably the chance of their lifetime, like income wise. But there are also people you have to say no. And that also triggers a lot of people, because we, once again, always coming back to good old school, we never learn it. We never learn how to handle rejection. And that's where entrepreneurship comes into the game, where that's probably it's the school of life, right? Entrepreneurship will teach you really how to handle rejection, or you will break. There are just those 2 options. It's simple.
Yes. And I know we also, when we talked about doing this podcast episode, we also said that we are going to touch a little bit on how to use business for your own spiritual growth. If you want to just give us a little bit more depth into that, how can we use our business for our own spiritual growth?
Your you can see your business like a mirror, because it will show you every trauma, every deficiency, everything you did not really heal or handle in your life. It will come back to you. Business is like a merciless friend. It's brutal in a good way. So if, for example, you did not build self-esteem, you will struggle with rejection. It is as it is. If you did not learn how to learn, you will see it in the growth of your business. And that's, for me, that's what I always say. Your business only grows to the capacity of your own self. And what I see with most, I also work here with a lot of startups, is especially in spiritual growth. Are you able to work on, to do the inner work, to change how you think, to change how you feel, to change your connection to whatever higher power it is? That's the foundation. And in that way, if you want to go into spiritual growth, I always say, start a business. That it is the practical way. And I know that probably a lot of your viewers would love to have a bit of a more fluffy way. And that's sometimes nicer. The thing is just, for me, that's also right what you read in my profile. It's the spiritual badass. Because one thing is sitting in a monastery and meditating, and one thing is like staying out there fighting every day and keep your monk Zen style inner peace. That's also what I said to you before. My day was not really the nicest one. That's where you see if you mastered your inner peace, your inner growth. Do small things kick you out of the way? Yes or no? Do big things kick you out of the way? Yes or no? That's the way how you can see your spiritual growth through business. Yeah.
Thank you for sharing. And I remember even before I ever consider starting a business, I was working in the office and I was listening to a podcast from one of my mentors. And he said, if you want personal development on steroids, then start your business.
Hallelujah. Hallelujah.
I've done a lot of courses and a lot of different things, and they don't move me. They don't challenge me as I feel like I think it's time to start no freaking clue in what I did involved.
And usually that's a good thing, because if you would know it before, you would never start.
Mm.
Same like on an adventure journey and so on. It's at the beginning, you have this uninformed optimism where you just think, oh my God, it's going to be beautiful and so on. That's to come to the point
Mhm.
for spiritual growth. Like, how do you handle the low points?
Yeah.
How coming back, because I said before, self-awareness and self-love and also self-confidence. How do you treat yourself when shit is hitting the fan? Who are you then? Are you getting into negative self-talk? Oh, this is shit and I'm shit. Or are you able to just say empowering self-talk? Are you able to go that deep into emotional intelligence, to be aware of what do your emotions tell you? How can you adjust them? And that's the reason
Yeah.
why business building is like spiritual growth or self-development on steroids. Definitely. Yeah.
Ooh,
I agree with it.
it could be more true than that. Because it's so hard to explain that to people that are not into business. Because I know I was trying to tell some of the things to some of my friends. I'm like, yeah, but you don't get it. Like when you have your business, it's like that trauma comes out and that fear and the things that you had no idea that they were like in the Pandora box, they all come out and you have to face them. And if you don't, then you have to give up and you have to realize, okay, maybe entrepreneurship is not for me because I can or I'm not willing to do the work that is required forward as an entrepreneur. And they're like, but why it's so hard? Like from first I went to find a job. Why it's so hard? I don't get it. I'm like, of course you're not an entrepreneur. And especially when you sell your services. Now, when I think it's also different when you sell a product base or when you sell a digital product, coaching, consulting, healing. Would you say it's a difference between the two on how you approach business, how you feel around selling and so on?
Most parts are the same. Most parts, like there are fundamentals, principles of business, they're always the same. Nevertheless, always the fulfillment is different if you have a service business or a coaching business. Why?
Mm.
Because then it becomes even more important who you are. Because let's say if you have a product-based business, you can cover more. Because if you just, I don't know, sell cupcakes or whatever, the cupcake is good or not, but it does not show any emotions and so on. But obviously, if you have a coaching business or whatever, and if you struggle with your business, with your emotions and so on, that will also affect the results of your client. And by that, you might get in trouble very soon.
Yeah. So listen and then you anticipate.
Yeah. Sooner than you love to. Yeah.
Mm. So, can you share with us maybe some stories that you have experienced within your own life in your entrepreneurial journey, but also within your clients? Because if you have worked with so many different clients on so many different levels, on how did they handle the rejection? How did you handle rejection? What are some of those practical ways? And I know one of them you said that the first one is self-esteem, and you gave us a beautiful roadmap. And would you have any other practical tools or strategies for people on how to handle rejection when it comes, especially within the entrepreneurial journey?
Definitely. Like I would say, doing it, go out there and face the rejection. It's
Mm.
like facing the fear. It's very hard to heal it and to train it theoretically, right? If you want to get a six pack, there are just two pretty ways: healthy nutrition and workout. No other ways. You can't do it theoretically. That's impossible. And the same way goes also on how to handle rejection. You need to experience it. You need to feel also the pain, and then step by step, learn how to handle it better. Because the first time it's like a slap in your face. You might even cry, and that's good. That's fine. But if you then take care of yourself, if you learn also how to bring your back up into a positive state, and if you see, hey, it gets better and better, the same as a workout. At the beginning, you have some muscle ache and so on. The same here. You will get emotional muscle ache for sure. At the beginning, it might take days. Then you might shrink it down to one day, then to a couple of hours. And that's just always, once again, it's training. Go in, face the rejection, and make sure to acknowledge it. Once again, treat yourself well, and always very important. That was for me one of the biggest learnings of all those years, to observe your self talk, like mental, emotionally, and also how you behave in when you face rejection. I can tell you, like, from my own experience, and I see it with a lot of entrepreneurs, we tend to drift in negative behaviors. Can be junk food, can be alcohol, can be smoking, can be drugs, can be sex, whatever. A lot of people try to cover the pain of rejection with other behaviors of substances. And once again, come always back to self-awareness. Once you come aware of those negative behaviors, you can start to treat it around, to switch it. And that's what I, always suggest. I just also here, like, I'm here invested in a software startup, and the CEO is a young lady in her mid-20s. And I remember when we started out 3.5 years ago, beginning, she was struggling so much with rejection, because if you're beginning 21, 22, and you have to go out and sell fancy software to Fortune 500 CEOs and so on, that's hard, especially if you never learned it. So whatever I just shared with you, I told her now for years. And she always said, like, well, it's the same again. It does not change. Those are the principles. But I can observe it on her behavior, how she shows up, like how she handles it nowadays, how she masters it, that she's growing.
Beautiful. The truth is, guys, that you cannot avoid it. You can
And
escape.
not avoiding it, not escaping it, and not even shortcutting.
Mm,
That's the thing. There is not even a short.
yes, there is no magic pill or no magic wand to avoid rejection. And if you want to grow, if you want to succeed, and either if you're an entrepreneur or not,
Yeah.
because that's everything in life, isn't it? If you want to grow, we have to be willing to face rejection.
And one really important part of handling rejection in a positive way is empathy, to understand the other person. The example I just told you about this, I would say, hate-filled email was for me empathy. Like, how might his world be, right? What might he have experienced? The same thing. If you in business, if you go out to sell, understand the other person. What did the person go through? Where is the person standing? A lot of other things might affect their decision. And that's also like the integrity part. Because if you go out to sell something, you really believe it, you're really convinced about it, you just want good for the other person. If the person then says no, okay, try to understand it. Don't take, because if you understand the other person, it, you don't take it personal anymore. And that helps.
Yeah, and I think that's key when we are able to separate and not take it personally. And also, as you said, empathy, really looking at the other person from a place of love and compassion instead of being, oh my gosh, they said no, they rejected me, they are the worst person ever. It's really putting also yourself in their shoes. No, this is what you share. What if you have been, or maybe in the past, you have been in a similar position where you also had to say no, and then ask yourself, okay, when I said no to that opportunity, that person, that program, that coach, and so on, ask yourself, was it personally? Was it because I didn't like that coach, or I didn't like that program, or what really driven you to say no? And when you are able to put yourself into the other position, it's also going to be easier to detach yourself from, oh, this is about me, and going into low self-esteem.
Hallelujah. I absolutely agree with you.
In there, there's so many amazing things with us and so many golden nuggets. And I really appreciate your, first and foremost, your resilience, because what I hear from your answers a lot, it's resilience is discipline, and it's commitment to be better, do better. And these are also, I can say very openly, that these are also traits I picked up when we also had our conversation in person at my Valley University, when you have shared different stories with me. And thank you for trusting me to share those stories. But it's definitely that commitment to growth. So now, you being an entrepreneur for so many years, if you look at the three main traits, that what's helped you the most, and what do you see within your clients that it's helping them the most to like keep going, to not give up on their dream, on their business, on their mission? What would you attribute to those three main values or characteristics?
Let's focus it down on character traits, because that fits the best also to your podcast. First and foremost, focus. That's nowadays,
Mm,
is it a skill? Is it a character trait? I don't know. It is probably the most important thing, to stay focused over a sustained period of time. And we're talking here about years, not getting distracted from other things, right? Whatever fancy adventures and so on. So really stick to it, whatever comes. Don't waste your time on social media, on Netflix, whatever. Say no. Then the second, I would say, is willpower, for sure. And willpower to train like a muscle once again. It's simply train. Am I able to come back? We spoke before about failure, right? Rejection. It's every time you come back, you train that muscle and it gets stronger and stronger. And sooner or later, it just becomes an automatism. Very simple. It's, can you stick to do whatever you said you're going to do? Can you deliver or outwork your own expectations over and over again? Can you face challenges over and over again? That's like building willpower. And for me, it's like discipline, where discipline is it's very similar. And for me, a big change in life was that I changed discipline with self-love. And I do not use anymore like you need to be disciplined, right? You need to have willpower. Just what if you change those two words? Because actually they are the same. Because it just means like I exchange instant gratification now for something bigger and better later on. That's discipline. And the same goes for self-love. Like, what's the definition of love for you? I'm curious. Now I'm like starting to ask back questions, right?
Your question was, what is self-love, or what is love?
What is love?
What is love? Man. So in general, love for me, it's being able to give and receive with no expectations, from this like selfless way, like with an open heart. That's how I would define it.
Beautiful. Beautiful. The definition I found for myself, my life, the best one was unconditional devotion,
Mm,
right? Unconditional with two meanings. The first meaning of unconditional, not depending on the condition you are in. So you devote yourself to something, somebody, or yourself, no matter what the circumstances are. If it's beautiful weather, raining, snowing, thunderstorm, blizzard, whatever, no matter. And the second one is unconditional, not binded to a condition, to an outcome. And that now close the circle. That's the reason why I exchanged self-love with discipline, because that is what self-love is. If you take it for health or also for business, I sacrifice an instant gratification now for the sake of, I devote myself to something, no matter how I feel, whatever the circumstances are, no matter the outcome. I just do it because of the sake of doing it. And that helped me a lot. So that was second one, right? We had now focus with willpower slash drifted off into self-love, it comes always back. Like those are the core fundamentals. It's self-awareness. Self-awareness is definitely because it helps you become aware of your own thoughts, your own self-talk, of your beliefs, your fears, your emotions, your traumas, your good and not so good habits, being aware how you interact with other people. It's like self-awareness is crucial. Once you nail that, a lot of other things fall into part.
Wow. And I want to say that, especially when you have shared about the unconditional devotion, I would say I had like chills my whole body because it was so profound and so deep. So, from the bottom of my heart, I would say I really want to say thank you for sharing that deep wisdom with us because it
You're
was
welcome.
very, very, very profound.
Devoting unconditionally myself to you.
This hour for your own mind. So I really appreciate it. And we are coming very, very close, like to an hour now. But Manuel, tell us a little bit what are you passionate about these days? What are some projects you are working on, and how people can reach you the best and work with you, so they also have that beautiful opportunity.
Passion nowadays, it is, I love what we do because I have the honor to cherish the people I work with, the people I work for, the projects I work for. And so we have such a huge diversity of different projects from crypto NFT space to we're currently building an academy for farmers to flirt and charisma coaches to whatever topic it is. And for me, I'm just in love with learning. And for me, my business is just a vehicle to accelerate my growth because whatever thought leader business we scale, I learn everything about it. Like I know the philosophy of the guy to its deepest. I like really download everything because then I digest it and we bring it back to him. And that's what brings me the most joy in all those different topics in all life areas to scale their online education businesses and to see the impact we have on so many people that the end and the beauty to know. Of course, the thought leader is the one in the spotlight, but we can like, we know it for ourselves. Okay. This will contribute that's our part to it. If somebody's interested in like my social profile, there is like a link tree, which goes on our website where you can book also a short call to get to know each other. And yeah, I'd say that's at the moment. Yeah.
Yeah, amazing. Any other thoughts that you would like to share before we wrap up a beautiful podcast episode?
It's not matching perfectly the topic, but a friend and mentor said that recently to me, and it was like so profound. He said to me, Manuel, take a deep breath. Like we can do that together, right? And then he said, if we are aware, every breath we take is nothing else than a step closer to death. For me, that was so profound because it reframes life, right? It
Yeah.
shows us like how precious every moment is. It can be over tomorrow, hopefully not, but to appreciate the journey. And that's also to wrap the entire topic up on rejection, on failure, on business building. Being an entrepreneur is probably the most beautiful thing you can do in your life. It's like art for me. Others paint pictures or we will business. But at the end, don't get too attached to it, right? Because what life is really about is to unfold yourself, find out who you are, what you want to contribute to the world, what your gifts are, what your weaknesses are, and grow and unfold and enjoy it along the way. Just spread joy unconditionally to the world. And that's it. Be aware that it can be over soon. And every breath you take, nothing else than a step closer to that.
So profound. I want to thank to each and every one of you for joining us. We really appreciate you. We really appreciate your time, your Manuel, and each and every person that has joined us, because time, it is the most precious thing that we have. And please do not take it for granted, because as Manuel shared with his last deep quote, that every breath take us closer to that. So do not take your time for granted, and invest it wisely, because you cannot get it back. So thank you for being here, and thank you for joining us.
Andrea, thank you for the invitation. Thank you for having me. And yeah, looking forward to meet you somewhere around this beautiful globe.
Me too. I'm looking forward to it as well. Thank you, everyone. Love you. I appreciate you, and I believe in you. Thanks for tuning in to Spiritual Changemakers podcast. To stay connected and help us reach more people like you, please subscribe, follow, and leave a comment. Join our community of spiritual changemakers on social media to connect with like-minded individuals and continue the conversation. Remember, the power to create positive change is within you. Keep showing up as your best self, and let's keep the magic of change alive. Until next time.